Okay, let's talk about the improvements that I've decided to make on this specific style screwdriver versus the original antique version. But before I do that, I want to let you know that there are two options for sale. There's the fully complete screwdriver with handles and a hardened blade, and the do-it-yourself version, which is obviously cheaper, available with brass pins that come along with your purchase, and it is not hardened on either end or the whole thing. If you want, you can kind of do whatever you want. There have been tons of people that have already made really cool and different handles for their own screwdrivers. Now, let's go back to specifically talking about the differences. Most notably is the blade size. Much larger on my version here in both length and width, i.e. it's thicker than the original. And it's also a consistent length along the entire blade. It does not taper down like the original over here. That was done on purpose because sunken screw heads that are deeper within a hole would be unable to be reached with this, because it does taper out unless it happens to have a hole that large already. With this, the fastener width, if it's 1 inch, which this happens to be, will be fully engaged, and it will be glorious for you to use as deep as you can go up to here. That's kind of the point. And to the other point, these are designed hollow ground. So if you can see that, this is just a wedge shape, whereas this is two curves that go outwards and then go back at the point here. So there's about 1/8 of an inch of pure parallel sides right at the tip, and then it starts flaring outwards. And that's much like gunsmithing screwdrivers and other more expensive screwdrivers. That kind of ensures that you don't have this wedge shape that usually causes you to cam out and damage the fastener. This should engage fully. Now, the thickness of this is 1/8 of an inch. So that matches a fastener that is slotted for this size. It's a standard size, so it will work with modern equivalents. The shaft size is completely the same, but the handle position is rotated 90 degrees. And that is also on purpose. So the blade is now perpendicular to where the handles are attached instead of being parallel like this screwdriver. And that is done so if you are using this to pry, which I know you're going to do, you can pry and not worry about having this bend. This portion right here is very thin on the original, and if you pried hard enough, you could bend it in some direction, this way or that way, if you're really forcing it, but the blade would usually break before you got there. This is just in case you want to be a crazy person leveraging things. Finally, the actual material is completely different as well. Obviously, with more modern steels, we can get a better result. This originally was some form of wrought iron with what I would believe is kind of a case hardening on it. So just the outer minimal amount of outer surface was hardened, and then the inside was just super mild steel essentially. This is actually 1144 steel. So this is hardenable up until about 52 Rockwell, which is right at where most screwdriver tips, modern screwdriver tips, sit. So it's a perfect steel for this. It's incredibly easy to heat treat. The 1144 steel is already stress relieved. So when you heat and quench this, if you were doing your own, it pretty much stays exactly where it was after being heated and cooled down quickly, which is fantastic for what we need. It's also a fairly strong steel and much stronger than the original that we have here. Now, as for the actual wood material here, the original was beech, which is a completely fine wood. I decided to slightly upgrade, in my opinion, to cherry. So these are solid cherry handles, and they will age over time to a color similar to this, especially with what I have here is a hardening wax finish, because I kind of wanted you to still be able to feel the wood and not have that plastic glossy lacquer on it. So I think this feels really great, and it looks fantastic as well, especially over time. Now, as you can notice, the pins don't exist on my version here, and that's for multiple reasons. One of the reasons being this has been designed to just perfectly slot in and capture the cut piece of wood for your handle, so it cannot rotate this way in any fashion. This can do that because these are beveled a little bit. So this has the ability to kind of flex and rotate over time. Not to mention the pins on this one are very roughly sanded, and I didn't really like that kind of look because the metal sands differently than the wood, so it was kind of difficult to get that to have a nice consistent look with the pins in place. But I do provide you brass pins with the kit yourself, and I even give you a slot vertically instead of just a hole, so that you don't have to be that accurate with the placement as long as you're just centered this way. So I believe that'll be just completely fine. These are, of course, attached with glue, which will hold up just fine in a number of temperatures and situations, even if you happen to be using this underwater for some crazy reason. If you get this and you really want pins, on the website where you go to purchase these is a complete 3D model of the handle and also a 2D template for you to print out and follow yourself. That includes the exact locations for the pins. You could put it right on here and just pin these yourself if you really, really want the brass pins, or maybe copper pins, or whatever you want. I do not mind. Another feature that we should quickly talk about is the fact that these shafts are completely square. These are actually 5/8 wide, and they are square because you are meant to use wrenches on them. And you can do that yourself if you have really any parallel jaw wrench. I wouldn't recommend this one guy. He makes like a bunch of wrenches that used to be in production. I don't know what his name is, but this fits totally well and obviously gives you that amount of leverage that you would never have just trying to destroy your own wrists, especially with such large of a fastener that this would require. So I'm going to show you now some ideas of completely do-it-yourself screwdriver handles that some of the patrons have already completed since they got first access to this, and that might give you a little bit of inspiration for what you might want to do with your kit. Hopefully, if this goes well, I could be looking at different sizes in the future, but it all kind of depends on if these are popular enough to support that kind of effort. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the process, watching how this was done. It was very, very difficult. It took about 3 years to get to this point. The manufacturing process needed to be nailed down, so this wasn't $400. And I think we got there. So I hope you all enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.